Moses speaks to the people of Israel before he dies. And Moses spoke at all times during his career. He was the rabbi, he was the counselor, he was the king, he was the mediator. Moses did everything. And yet the Torah says Moses spoke before he died. The reason for that is that words are very, very weighty. Words are significant. The words that you say have an impact on other people if they are measured and not repeated often, that they become trite. And so this process of making videos, which I enjoy, and sharing some of my thoughts with you, I don't want to be burdensome upon you. However, there have been some comments, and I wish to respond to those comments. I was asked why I talk about evolution when I'm not a microbiologist. Why don't I leave evolution to the scientists, to the microbiologists, etc., etc.? And my response in writing was not really the proper response. I wish to do so verbally so that people can hear what I have to say. Microbiology is a wonderful discipline, as is the chemistry and the physics and all of the other natural sciences. They measure things that are observable and things that can be reproduced. What they can't measure are things that are outside of the range of the particular discipline. I cannot use chemical theory to determine the nature of subatomic particles. They're two different disciplines and they're two different kinds of existence. The rules governing large bodies are not necessarily the same rules governing small bodies. And certainly what you're able to do with small, little subatomic particles, you can't do with large numbers of particles in large masses. And so the rules of each discipline are only in the environment of that discipline. That's the point. Microbiology cannot tell you how the world got here, because there's nothing in the microbes that can indicate the creative process. What they call the Big Bang has many, many people speculating as to what happened, but all of the theories offered cannot explain how it happened and what happened in its first initial instant, because it goes from chaos to order instantaneously. And what happened in the subsequent process of explosions, they have all different kinds of theories how these things went. They have coagulation and explosion further, different theories about, but one thing is certain, that they really don't know for sure what took place, because it's beyond their pale of examination. It's only speculation. And so this is the point. Microbiologists are very, very good at telling us what goes on in the small parts of the various living creatures and how they interact and what can be done, etc., etc. They're wonderful at that, and I don't claim any knowledge in that. Where they overstep their bounds, when they go into matters of creation, religion, or non-religion, that's outside the pale of microbiologists, because there's nothing observable in the process of how life actually began, because the conditions for that are beyond our imagination. We're only speculating. Speculation does not facts create. And therefore, in terms of cosmology, evolution, you don't leave it to the microbiologists because they're not any more qualified to give an opinion than I am. On the contrary, I come from a different perspective. Because I come from a different perspective, I can think out of the box, whereas they can't. And so, let me just tell you this following perspective. I marvel at the wondrousness of life and the wondrousness of existence. And what astronomers and physicists and biologists and chemists have revealed to us is nothing less than breathtaking. And the more they reveal, the more wondrous is this world that God has created. And so actually the microbiologists and the physicists and the zoologists and all of the various ists actually should make a person a greater believer than a non-believer. Because you see, this is not God of the gaps. This is explaining how God did things, how wondrous God did things, how magnificent God. The more you study, the more you realize the wisdom that was necessary to go into every single item, every single blade of grass, every single weed, every single germ, every single animal and bird. It's just a wonder. It's a miracle. It's not God of the gaps. It's seeing the wisdom of God, appreciating the wisdom of God. For you see, Maimonides, the great Jewish thinker, says, God and his wisdom are one, meaning that God's wisdom is infinite, it's beyond ours. And we're beginning to appreciate that by the process of the sciences. So the sciences actually enhance our religious experience rather than destroy them. Mr. Atheist Temple. The other thing, for those who object to my believing as a Jew and not accepting either Christianity or Islam, I find the arguments laughable. Because, you see, Christianity and Islam don't exist in a vacuum. There are documents. Those documents quote certain things. If a document is obviously in error, it's a sign that it wasn't God. Now, you could say, well, the Torah is in error. Well, if you find the Torah, an error in the Torah, that's an absolute and incontrovertible error, then I'd agree with you. But that doesn't exist. The Torah is the basis of the Jewish religion. The Torah has been gone through by many, many sources and archaeologists, and the more they dig, the more they find the Torah to be true. The Quran and the Gospels quote the Torah and misquote. And if they misquote the Torah, then you know that they couldn't be right. Because if they're quoting something and they can't get that right, something that was written, they can't get that right, certainly something that wasn't written, that came from God, you can question. Because if they can't copy correctly, you certainly can't trust their whims and their so-called visions. And so, my dear friends who are Islamists and Christians, you're entitled to keep your religion to yourselves. I and my colleagues have the original. We have the original document. And it's very, very clear that the information that you have about our document is falsified. And therefore, yours could not be the Word of God. Mine, on the other hand, can be the Word of God for you. And so, I love you. I care about you. I want you to be successful. But I'm not going to become or entertain any of your thoughts. I respond to you because you write me, and I have to be honest enough to respond.